Hi everyone and welcome. I'm really excited to have you all with us today for this conversation on how unified execution can drive e-commerce success. Today's topic is about looking at the bigger picture of e-commerce execution, how different teams, agencies, and technologies can work together, and what happens when everything is finally in sync. My name is Iringó, and I'm with Prefixbox. We help e-commerce brands improve their on-site product discovery experience through smarter search and personalization. And I have a guest joining me today. David, would you like to do a quick introduction of yourself and Vevol Media?
Absolutely. Hi there, everyone. David here. I handle the commercial side with Vevol Media, meaning that I put forward the various strategies and commercial aspects involved in our day-to-day business and operations. And as Vevol Media, well, we're a Shopify partner, Shopify Plus partner agency, but I think we do definitely go the extra mile when it comes to the Shopify ecosystem, meaning that we're actively working side by side with Shopify to develop the actual ecosystem. So, because of that, we have official themes in the theme store, official apps, both public and private, in the App Store. And as I was saying, working side by side with Shopify and various third parties to take the ecosystem to the next level.
Thank you. And I can absolutely second that. We've been partners for a while, and I love working with you guys. So,
Likewise.
So let's just go ahead and get started. And let's start by setting the stage a bit because before we talk about solutions, it's important to understand what actually goes wrong when teams or efforts fall out of sync. So, David, you often say that every effort counts. What does that actually mean in practice for e-commerce teams?
I guess the gist is that every effort counts indeed until it's out of sync. And the idea behind this is that, well, we see quite across any vertical, across multiple tax brackets, to say so, a lack of direction and a lack of centralization. And yeah, of course, we have all these teams, usually your SEO team, your paid media team, your data team, and the email marketing team, and so forth, who are working in silos. And essentially, what's happening is that each of them are tracking very specific KPIs for their particular side of the business. But usually, there is a lack of coordination between these teams and the general direction of the brand, which usually which usually ends up in desynchronized decision making that are not data based, and to many coordination problems in between the brand, which obviously usually leads to a lack of proper decision making, but also not the type of growth that you would envision or that you would be going for.
Mm-hmm. And how can you tell when things aren't working together, or what are some of the biggest signs that a company's execution is fragmented?
Well, the signs are quite clear and diverse usually, but you can definitely see it in some of the relevant metrics that you would be following. So, for example, we've seen it so often that, for example, the web development team is not rightly coordinated with your email marketing team, which at the end of the day means that, for example, there are some super nice email marketing campaigns that get sent out, but then when clicking the various links in those campaigns, the website or like the potential landing page that you have designed or not yet designed doesn't particularly match the messaging, the offering of that amazing email marketing campaign you've sent, which usually leads to bounces from that particular email. The same story goes for paid media and like ads and the lack of synchronization with your web development team, but also in between all the other possible teams.
So essentially, it's not about the tools or the like the things you're doing, but communication between the teams and having everything under one controlled system. And so
Absolutely.
in your experience, why do so many e-commerce teams still operate in silos even when they know it hurts their performance?
Well, this is the million dollar question, I guess. But there are quite a couple of reasons behind this, ones that we've uncovered. So as I was saying, across any tax bracket, even if we're talking about an e-commerce manager, or if we're talking about a more complex team with a bunch more teams under the e-commerce manager, it's usually a lack of vision and a centralized capacity to look at all the data. Because usually, even if we're talking about internal teams or third-party teams, that would be outside your organization, usually they get to decide how the operations work based on some very specific metrics that that particular team would be tracking. So obviously, you're talking about the SEO team. You'll be looking at things like organic traffic. You're looking at the paid media team. You'll be looking at things like return on ad spend. But these metrics don't always, or almost no time, build the full picture. And obviously, we were seeing this because either the e-commerce manager having so many aspects to coordinate usually lacks the time and capacity to coordinate all these different and various actors, but also the capacity to look at the data in an aggregated manner, because that's very important. Obviously, there's so many insights that your team might have collected from various touch points with the customer that can be invaluable for your development, invaluable for your growth. For example, there's insights and there's A/B tests that, let's say, the email marketing team has been running for like the last year, from which they got very relevant insights about the audience and the way they operate and the way they want to be communicated with. And those could be invaluable in your redesign projects, for example. But usually these teams don't communicate. So the web development team usually ends up having to test the exact same aspects, which kind of brings fragmentation to the entire process and slows everything down.
Yeah, I love that. And it all sounds clear in theory, but do you have one real life example of what fragmentation looked like in action, and where a team was doing, like where teams were doing great job individually, but then results fall apart? So maybe it will be easier to understand for everyone.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're seeing this quite often, actually. I'm not going to name the companies, but I definitely have a couple examples in mind in which we saw a very clear fragmentation between the teams, and which led to very obscure decision-making processes, meaning that they were based on personal preferences of the e-commerce manager, things like, I don't think TikTok is a good channel for us, and it doesn't work in general, so we're not going to do that. Or things like, even though, for example, if you would be looking at the data on a comparative level, you would see that attribution wise, that particular platform was generating maybe the most out of your other paid channels. Or we've seen examples in which the paid advertising team was doing an amazing job running some fantastic ads that would convert. So like everything looked good on paper, because the ads were great and they were converting. Essentially, they were sending people off the website, but because there was no specialized landing page that would match the messaging, even like the offers sometimes. So like you would see some particular discount that's being highlighted into the ads, but then you don't see the same aspects onto the web page. Obviously, most of the users are going to bounce, and that leads to, well, very very big bounce rates and a lot of lost checkouts essentially.
Mhm. Could this also happen because marketers are looking at the wrong KPIs, or they have the wrong understanding of KPIs? What you said about TikTok, that they thought it wasn't a good conversion rate, but in reality it was.
I think when it comes to KPI, everyone is after the classic vanity metrics, but then they never paint the full picture. So looking at things like the customer lifetime value, or like your cart abandonment rate, things like your return rate, can help paint a way more precise picture in regards to your business and competitive environment. And by having access to all this data and aggregating it, it can definitely help you better understand your business, better understand your customer. There's so many different metrics that people never really care about. There's things like literally what time your audience is usually doing their purchases, and going even deeper than that and understanding why is it that your audience tends to do purchases at this particular level. And I think these type of insights, because obviously every at this point every marketeer and every more or less every company and every brand is fighting against companies like Shein and Temu and everything on that direction. So you as a merchant definitely have a lot more access and a lot more insights in regards to your audience, because it's not as broad, and obviously your offering is not as broad as them. So by having access to aspects like this and being able to track why your customers are doing the things that they're doing and what time they're doing those things, for example, can definitely help you make a lot smarter decisions. Reach out to them in those particular times. Schedule your email marketing campaigns to go off at a certain time in order to catch those particular customers at the right time for them to actually convert. So there's so many metrics that you can actually follow in order to complete the picture that your casual return on ad spend, organic traffic, conversion rate, and so forth metrics are usually unveiling.
Yeah, I think this leads us perfectly into your like the main topic and the concept of common brain, which you use, and I really like this. I think this is the perfect description of what we're talking about. So I have one question about this for you. Like, how do you get brands and agencies to start thinking beyond their own slice of the funnel, and what helps them shift that mindset from isolating KPIs to sharing one impact?
I think in order for this to make sense, I will start by discussing a little bit about the idea of that common brain concept. And what it usually means is that we're in the conversations with the merchants and brands, we usually try to position ourselves as the coordinating actor that then leads and has to put together every single third party, I would say, around the same table. And that means having common boards. We use Asana, but realistically, any tool would work in terms of this, and essentially having all the third parties involved staying at the same table, communicating, sharing insights. Because of that, we're also running monthly meetings to share insights in between all the parties involved, and I think that's also very important. On top of that, there will be also like a common calendar that everyone coordinates around, and this really helps with the lack of organization and the mismatch between like web ads and email and the other channels that you might be using. So in terms of that, it's important to have this, or to build this actor that gets to coordinate all these aspects, because at the end of the day, that really helps with the decision making and understanding what's happening behind the closed curtains, let's say. And to dive into your question now, I think it really depends on the teams that we're working with, obviously. But most of the times, everyone is open to working in this particular manner. And also because we have a very strong network of partners that we usually recommend and get recommended by. Most of the customers we're working with are already working with partners of ours. So because of that, the conversation is always quite simple, because the process is already established and very clear for everyone. We have direct communication channels that definitely help in the various day-to-day operations between and the interaction between the teams, which obviously helps with having a more agile approach towards your business. But I think at the end of the day, what's important is for the boards, or well, the decision makers, to have a shift in mentality in terms of how you judge the performance of the various teams involved. Because if you're going to track there's some very specific KPIs for those particular teams, and that's it, you're usually fragmenting their capacity to innovate and to build on top of each other, because there's no individual channel in today's world, and in almost any context there's going to be a number of relevant touch points for your customer that are going to lead to that conversion. So obviously, yes, attribution is getting harder and harder, but you as a business owner or as a decision maker inside the business should always keep a close eye, not just on those specific metrics, but rather how these company and how these third parties interact among each other, and how do they help each other, and what's the clear growth direction that's ahead of us. And by having all these teams kind of sharing inputs towards the general growth of the company rather than how to increase the return on ad spend, is definitely going to help bring this concept to life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is exactly where collaboration between partners like us working together or with other agencies makes a huge difference. Because when everyone is focused on the same thing, the same outcome, execution gets so much smoother.
Absolutely.
But what happens, for example, when a new client comes to you and they are already working with another agency on, for example, only the ads, and they are very satisfied, so you only handle the rest of the stuff. How do you make sure to align with the other agency, or you go directly to the owner or the
So
client?
this is actually the case in most scenarios because as we're not doing full-fledged marketing and we don't do ads and we don't do a couple of these aspects, of course, most collaborations do go like this. And what's really important from the first conversation that I'm having with those decision makers is the need to get everyone around the same table. So essentially, after the first discovery calls, usually the first step is to get everyone in the same room, virtual or not, and actually discuss about the project itself. Because obviously, in our perspective, as starting from a web development perspective, as I was saying, there's so many relevant insights that these companies have already been collected because they have been working with that particular company for quite a while that can be invaluable for web development, but also for the growth of the company. And being able to shed some light over those insights from the beginning of the project becomes essential in the good functioning of it. So because of that, I'm always preaching to align everybody, to grab everyone, have them on the same call. From that point onwards, to organize monthly calls in which we involve everyone. To start having putting together this shared calendar in which every single team completes and adds value by discussing the various initiatives they have, and which definitely helps with the coordination and everyone knows what everyone else is doing, because yeah, this lack of organization can definitely hurt your business so much. And yeah, we're seeing this, and sometimes it can be a little bit more hidden. Obviously, if your numbers are good, your sales are up, you might not always pay attention to aspects like this. But at the end of the day, being able to have a consistent growth is very, and not plateau, is definitely very important. And realistically, the only way to properly achieve this is by coordinating all your actors.
Yeah. Again, so this again just stays the same thing, that communication is just as important as the strategy that you are doing. Okay.
Communication is
So
everything.
yeah. So we've talked about alignment at the team level. So now let's look at the role technology plays in this. So tools are supposed to make life easier, but often they make things more fragmented because there are too many dashboards, there is too little connection. So how can technology help unify execution instead of complicating it?
Well, what we're usually seeing in terms of tools is that less tends to usually be more, and being able to direct your efforts towards the right tools is definitely the right way to go about it. Actually, most of the times we're starting collaborating with a new customer and we're like a new brand. One of the first aspects that we do is a cleanup. Even if we're talking about email marketing lists, we run a cleanup over those. Even if we're talking about apps, we run a cleanup over the apps, because what we're usually discovering is that you can save about 10 to even 30% of your cost just by cleaning up and making sure that everything that you're using in your stack is perfectly adapted to your needs, and that you're using everything you can, and essentially milking those tools as much as possible out of all the features that could be beneficial to that can be beneficial to your business and to your growth. But obviously, having the right partners and using the right tools can definitely make or break your business. Obviously, there's multiple aspects on the market for various things, but it also comes down to, again, communication. And that's a very important aspect for us, because being able to have direct communication channels with our partners definitely means that whenever there's a situation happening, or whenever there is a question from like one of our internal teams in regards to some aspects, being able to directly reach out to our partners and discuss, jump on a quick meeting and just figure everything out, definitely helps with the agility of how we work together as teams. And I think being able to work with the teams that are willing to do so definitely helps the overall business.
Yeah. And when that alignment starts to happen between tools, the teams, and the data, how does it impact the organization? Like what changes inside?
Well, first of all, the decision-making process becomes a lot more clear and data-backed, and I think that's very essential aspect because yeah, obviously you're tracking your data, but usually you're tracking your data in individual systems, which means that you can't really take the right decisions or the data-backed decisions based on an aggregated plan. So obviously, one of the things that we're preaching for is aggregating all your data under one dashboard that allows you to see a lot more clearer what's happening to your business and what are the relevant metrics and how do they interact with each other. And obviously, by being able to have a better approach towards decision making, we're seeing fantastic improvements towards businesses because obviously, it's not. I mean, you're taking the guesswork out of what you're doing, and that's essential for being able to move in the right direction. Maybe pivot whenever your company needs to do that, and just be more agile in general.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're also seeing at Prefixbox because like search and our solution connects what people want, what products are available, and what data flows back into marketing and UX. And when those insights are shared across the teams, not just kept within one channel, it becomes a feedback loop that improves the entire customer journey. So our tool is not only just a conversion tool, but it's a bridge between performance marketing, ads, product strategy, and user experience, helping everyone make more connected and help them make data-driven decisions, essentially.
And that is
That's the
exactly why Prefixbox is part of our toolkit.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about how all of this looks like in action. So if there is someone from a brand listening to this right now, what is the very first thing that they should do tomorrow to start this process?
Essentially, I would say that the first thing is to just get everyone around the same table. Once you're able to do that, I think it's very important to decide who is going to be the coordinating actor and make it very clear for all the third parties involved in regards to how the communication and how everything is going to flow from now onwards. So essentially, once you establish who this actor is and how communication works, you're going to establish the aspects that I was talking about: a shared calendar, a board where everyone communicates, something like an Asana board that's where everyone has access and everyone can keep in touch and understand what's the progress for the various updates. And this also makes communication a lot easier and clearer than the various infinite email threads about what's happening with this task, check out this task here, and it just keeps everyone a lot more organized. So that, for example, whenever the ads team wants to put out forward the campaign, it simply cuts down communication and time to put that together, just because they don't need to reach out to me to or like to the project manager to ask how things are going, and then the project manager goes to then discuss with the web development team to understand what's an update for those particular tasks, and then go back to the ads team to communicate that. It just happens a lot more simpler and everything flows.
So it's not about doing more, it's about doing it together.
It's actually about doing less but in the right direction, because you don't need those long communication lines in order for your business to function. And I think this shift in mentality, it's maybe the hardest part for most businesses, but once it's done, the results become clear.
Yeah, I can imagine how it's difficult to change everything overnight and just shift your mentality into a better direction. But it's easier when you
Obviously,
have a great team behind you and have someone to rely
definitely.
on. Yeah.
And like I think another reason for which this happens is because we're seeing a lot of 6, 7 digit businesses that are still operating like small businesses in terms of how they do things, in terms of having one central point of contact for like decision making, which usually bottlenecks the entire company. And obviously, like this shift needs to happen towards being able to, as a business, being able to delegate in the right direction, having the trustworthy team that you can rely on for decisions that you as a business owner are currently still making. And I think that's a very important shift in mentality as well.
Yeah. And how do you see when once this alignment is built, how do they keep it? What helps maintain this momentum?
Well, I think here it really depends on the teams, but in our experience, it's still very important for us to continue this alignment and to essentially keep everything together. Because of that, as I was saying, we're doing monthly alignment calls in between all the third parties involved to understand how things went on their side, what's some insights, what's some opinions of theirs, but also the capacity to have this, let me call it brainstorming session once a month with everyone involved usually tends to yield so much value compared to simply having decisions taken by the board, which is usually more or less disconnected from reality. So, usually by having this direct feedback loop implemented, because realistically, who better than the teams actually doing the nitty gritty stuff? Know what's happening with your business and would be able to generate the best ideas moving forward than the people in the trenches actually doing the work. So obviously having access to these insights and these opinions, it's invaluable. But still having this coordination force between them and being able to work very closely with the business and with the decision makers into understanding what goes on, and what works, what doesn't work, and what kind of efforts can be augmented in order for things to go even in a better direction is still essential. So because of that, of course, we do definitely act as the coordinator actor, but still obviously fulfill all the other aspects of the businesses in which we're involved, from web development to email marketing.
I imagine that once the process is in place, it almost becomes like a rhythm, so everyone knows when to think, when to adjust, and what to say. So it's do you
Exactly.
find that oh yeah. So do you find that once the team starts seeing the actual results, it's easier to maintain for them or to keep this alignment?
Well, definitely once the entire process and the entire situation starts bringing results, there's a lot more trust being built in between all the parties, and because of that, yeah, things indeed get more lean. But I would say that also this is a process that needs constant improvement. So obviously, having this feedback loop in between all of the teams is very important because it's it's an alive process. So obviously there's all these changes and all the situations that need to be navigated in our environment that really pose a threat usually to the various sides or like various businesses as whole. And I think it's very important to consistently be able to reiterate and just like grow by analyzing what happened on the session of last month and year to year and aspects like this, just to see the right direction and to see and understand where is the business headed.
Yeah, exactly. I see that we're almost running out of time, so I have one last question for you. Um, for anyone listening, maybe they are realizing that their setup is maybe a bit fragmented. So, what is one mindset shift that you would encourage them to make right now?
I think, with the risk of repeating myself, the most important mentality shift that you have to go through is first of all understand that you're not a small business anymore, and that you need to delegate as much as possible in order for your business to be able to grow. And on a secondary level, it's definitely being able to or stop judging your internal and external teams based on vanity metrics because they never paint the entire picture, and it's never just the fault of email marketing or just the fault of ads or just the fault of any team. It's an aggregated process and an aggregated effort, and you have to judge it exactly as it is.
Yeah, I love that. This is the perfect way to close this conversation and today's session. So, David, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. It's really exciting to be in this space right now where so much innovation and collaboration are happening in e-commerce. And for everyone watching, thank you for joining us. The session was recorded, so if you couldn't stay for the whole thing, you can just rewatch it anytime.
Thank you so much, Iringó, for having me. It was my pleasure.